Buddy.
Good morning, Abe.
Good morning, mate.
Happens to be morning for both of us somehow.
It does.
Pretty nuts, right?
God, this feels like back in the VC, back in the day when it just, you and I would always start it.
Early April, mid-April,
Yes,
before I went to see the buffalo.
we went to the Buffalo Land. Yes, correct. Correcto mundo.
I have a quick question for you,
Sure.
Noob. Um,
Shoot.
what is the best? How can I actually add something like a link to the jumbotron?
Oh, so you
Is
go
that
to
the
the
edit
tweet
function?
that you want to share.
Go.
And then on the right hand side of that tweet where, the little triangle and the fight, like it's like the little triangle on the arrow on the right hand corner. You got the
Go.
you got the like button, and then on the next one, next sign on the side
Okay.
is the
I'll
arrow
check it
up
out.
and the tray. So you press that, and then you'll see share tweet, and on the top you'll see your spaces, and you just have to press that, select that.
Okay. Beautiful.
Does that make sense?
I will check that out now. It does make sense. Yeah.
Mm.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Florioshi! Hi. Hi, Socrates. Hi, Cult Infinite. Hi, Bubs. How Cult Safari and Keck. And Crypto Cyberwolf. I'd say hello to you too, Whiplash, but we just came from another space, so no. Posonius, hi!
I was gonna say I saw Whiplash in a couple of spaces last night. This morning. Appreciate your energy, Whiplash. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you all here.
He's a space
Heads
lover.
up, if anybody doesn't have the Discord link to the Code of Ethics, DM me. I'm also gonna put it in the Jumbotron ASAP. What's up, Bubs? Thank you. Appreciate you too. Crypto Cyberwolf, Bolsonius. Hey, y'all.
Big topic of conversation, Wasteland.
It is. And heads up, I'm gonna be doing these every Saturday, same time. Um, and if anybody ever would like me to do a space at a different time, because like you or like anybody else in your time zone, it would be
No,
easier for
this
that,
works,
for that to happen.
Wastelander,
Just let me know.
because I can sleep
I
in
think it
tomorrow.
works for basically everybody. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Thanks, dude. I was hoping it would. It seems like a pretty neutral time for like across a lot of different time zones. So
Maybe I should start doing spaces around this time because it works for everybody.
well,
Let me rip off
I don't
your
think
time
anybody would
slot.
object. Yeah, yeah, well said. I think like for this one, if you would like to speak, I'll obviously like invite you up. Really, I want to answer like some initial questions people have, and then in the Discord channel, if you're on there in the Code of Ethics channel, which is below called the brand, we do have some ideas floating around as far as particular ways um, to add in sort of like provability or verification for particular parts of the Code of Ethics. It's the verification component for each what I'm calling article that is really critical, right? Um, because that's how we ultimately track what's going on and can provide immutable evidence for anybody who wants to check, like, did this person actually do this at this particular time, and how anybody can share that information over time. Got a good amount of engagement so far in the Discord channel. I'm not sure if the person who kind of started engaging is here at the moment. He's not. Do you see Socrates? Hello. Um, Thanks so much for everything you do in the Discord. Really appreciate you initially pointing out that the Rep3 was a great method for adding some verification. We both know that like it's never going to be about absolutely proving that X, was done and X conflicted with any given part of the code at any given point in time. But it does help and it does set our flag in the ground for other DAOs to see, right? So thanks, appreciate that. Koss, I see you. A lot of epic OGs in here. This is amazing. Socrates, okay. I see that you requested to speak. I'm gonna add you right now. Hey, Zacchaeus, how's it going, man?
A project where people can mint NFTs. The NFTs track your DAO achievements, and it could be both input by like a guardian type person, like the guardian could go in and add like an achievement, like, oh, you did, you voted on 100 proposals or something, and that's cool. But also there's a way to do like automated updates, I guess, like into this NFT. But with that, I think we might have to pay or something. I'm not really sure. They haven't their prices aren't on their website, but I'm gonna have a meeting with him on Monday. So I'll try to figure these things out. But what I would need to know is like what specifically needs to be tracked on the chain. Like one thing I really want to figure out is if we can have some sort of metric that tracks like, okay, this person has had their cult staked for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I think that would be cool. And also like number of proposals voted on. Um, yeah. Anyways, in terms of the Rep 3, that's the stuff I've been thinking about for that. This is the code of ethics, which I mean that kind of goes outside of just achievements, right? That's also shoulds and shouldn'ts do. But yeah. Anyways, those are my thoughts on this.
Yeah, those kinds of metrics are really essential, even beyond the code of ethics. So thanks for bringing up that level of application, Socrates. And yeah, as you alluded to, when it comes to the code of ethics, the idea in my mind, which you had given me like I don't know, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, in which I see Soldier of Cult mentioned this morning. He would be bringing up with one of our contacts from Rep 3, the idea that I think we're playing around with when it comes to the code in particular is being able to label in a way on the Discord um, who, whether they're guardians, whether they're the many, has, as far as we know, been abiding by different parts of the code of ethics, right? And those be via badges that one can upgrade and downgrade over time, right? So this is kind of like a minimal way to track and have on chain whether people are in, as it were, like compliance, that kind of thing. Um, and I'm probably going to say this a few times over the course of the space, but what like compliance means, I don't necessarily like that word, but the idea is simply, is it visible that folks, as far as we know, are actually in accordance with what has been voted on vis-a-vis the code of ethics over time by the many, by everybody else, right? So it's a minimal form of providing verification and proof um, for that. If anybody would like to ask questions, by the way, um, please do request to speak. I want to keep these weekly spaces fairly efficient, but I also know that we're all operating from a space of questions and kind of like wondering how the hell does this happen also. So I want to give room for wondering and wandering out loud, as it were, as well. And as a way to kind of like grease the wheels, for those of you who haven't been on the Discord channel, really the purpose of my initial post in the Discord was to lay out a minimal framework for what a code of ethics can look like. Um, and then we have a bunch of people suggesting different particular parts of the code. So, for example, Mr. C, when was it actually? Yeah, Mr. C, 31st of the last month, did mention some ideas which I think are pertinent to everybody in this call. The idea that I think has been in a lot of people's minds is what happens if guardians are voting, that kind of thing, right? So the code of ethics is not, I want to make clear, in response to that in particular. It's in response to the need to develop the social layer of cult as a whole, right? Like the thing about our DAO is we're a machine, but machines over time, they need to be updated, they need to be improved, right? A lot of this will have to do with uh, the mini and the guardianship actually taking a look self-consciously at how to improve over time. So the code of ethics is flowing from that that value standpoint, that standpoint of iterating improvements over time. But what we need in that case is always to answer the question of verification, right? How are we able to say to the best of our knowledge that this particular individual at whatever level did do such and such, or did not do such and such, aka did vote or did not vote at this particular time, right? And that's as I mentioned, as Socrates and Soldier have been weighing in the Discord. That's something that we could accomplish via the Rep3 protocol, which I believe is up for workshop as well. I did just see that also. Okay, that's pretty cool. Actually, quick question there, Socrates. Not to put you on the spot, so you're kind of operating at different levels here, but this is something that we would be actually investing in then, like at the full proposal level, right? Web3.
So they have a free one, but the free one requires admin input. So it would require someone to be like consistently going in there and actually physically adding all the achievements from people. So for example, if they're voting on something, I could go on the chain, I could search their wallet and see, okay, they voted on this many. But I feel like that's unsustainable. I mean, you would have to have someone full-time in there doing that all the time. I feel like since they have the automated version, I have no idea how much it is, so that's kind of an important thing. But since they have like an automated version where it can just read from the chain, I feel like if we're going to do it, we might as well have the real one, in my opinion, which would mean we'd have to do either proposal or figure out some other sort of way to get money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Automation definitely will help as things like really pick up in terms of the frequency of the data that would be on any given metric that we'd be accessing. Yeah. Soldier, I see you here. If you'd like to say anything about Rep3, as far as like its functionality or like where you think it could go, feel free to request to speak. As I still struggle to find my initial tweet in order to actually put the Discord link in there. That's new, but then.
Do you want me to do it, Waste?
I think you've done, I don't know, 1,000 times more spaces than me. That would be amazing. I would really appreciate that, actually.
Which post are you looking for?
This would be whatever. Oh, well, this would be the Code of Ethics post in the Discord. And then I've been searching in vain for my own tweet, which was the initial one for this space, actually.
For the Discord?
Yeah, that's right. Just so people can look at the initial document that I had copy pasted in, and then responses up until this point.
Yeah, I'll have a look at it. You can keep going.
Okay, thanks. That's amazing.
That's okay.
I appreciate people who actually are amazing at running spaces. Now, I see a couple of guardians in here. Steve Oshie, Mad Cultist. What cultish? Okay. If any guardians would like to come up and speak as well, I don't want this to Crypto Cyberwolf. I don't want this to simply be like people thinking, okay, like I'm part of the guardianship or I'm not part of the guardianship, and whichever like camp I'm in, as it were, like that dictates like what I kind of have to say. Like this should definitely be a more open, inclusive space where initially we're asking questions, right, and then hopefully like adding different sorts of ideas over time to address particular problems. So feel free to request to speak if you'd like. And just as a refresher, what I'm aware of as far as one particular application for Rep3 is the availability of on-chain badges, which can be upgraded and downgraded. So the problem that solves is being able to track, which guardians or which members of whatever part of the Discord in the DAO are doing things they said they would not do. An initial idea there is that a way to represent signing onto the Code of Ethics is you get a badge. You're at that level, and then let's say like it's proven that you did not abide by what you said you would do, which is on chain, then you get downgraded. That kind of thing. What's also really really helpful. Let me respond to these folks: Soldier, Steve Oshie. There we go. What's also another idea that was floated out there by Unicorn IO is the availability of a kind of praise system, right? Praise or acknowledgement of good and virtuous actions over time, I think, is really, really important for any kind of social system, right? It's kind of like an ingredient which, in my mind, is necessary for just building cohesion over time, right? Because we want to be acknowledged. That's only human, right? And if we can integrate that kind of idea as well, then all the better for it. Steve Oshie, Soldier, feel free to speak if you'd like. No need to raise your hand.
Hey there, guys. Hi, everyone. Hi, Wastelander. Great having this space, by the way. Thanks. I'm just
Thanks.
jumping in late here, guys, so I'm just kind of catching up on what you're saying. But yeah, there's like, if anyone wants to go and take a look at the rep-free workshop, basically, as you said, it's upgradable, downgradable sort of badges. But as far as the use case for that, I guess it's completely up to us. So all suggestions would be welcome on that as well in the Discord. I think looking at the workshop just now, it's sort of going along the lines of sort of badges that upgrade and downgrade as you participate in the voting system and stuff like that. So it's just really areas that I think we feel we need to improve participation on that would benefit the DAO as a whole. So any suggestions on that are welcome. But yeah, I think you also said it could be used to sign the code of ethics and stuff like that as well. So that's another great use case. Yeah, but everybody should check it out and just feel free to put in your suggestions. You know, you might have a winning idea there that everybody loves. So, yeah, get in there and participate, guys.
Yeah, brilliantly said, Soldier. I also see Socrates. You're laying out some thoughts in the Discord channel. Is it all right if I kind of like add a synopsis of those at the moment, or do you prefer to go over those yourself? Either way is fine.
Hey, sorry, I'm still writing in there. I mean, so I'm putting some of my ideas into the Discord, which, by the way, I linked. I commented on your post, Wastelander, with the link to the Discord. So if you could sum up. Yeah, I'm putting my ideas into the workshop. I feel like everyone's going to have different opinions on what correct ethics are. So it's going to be really difficult to figure out something that everyone agrees upon. So I'm just going to put my ideas there, and I'm sure people have other ideas that probably not the same as mine. It's going to be really difficult, though, to get everyone to agree upon what it means to be ethical within cult, because there is no real definition there. So we can try, and I hope we can figure it out. I worry that, I mean, maybe if we stick to like really, really simple things, maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, any given like set of ethics or any like code of like do or don't do this or else, like that's never going to be agreed upon, like in any kind of like community after, you get past like immediate family and that kind of thing, right? Definitely applies to a DAO where people don't even know who they are. So I agree with that. The points that you've made in the Discord so far, to me, they satisfy like the verification kind of criterion, which I have laid out in the initial kind of meta governance perspective at the beginning of the Discord thread. So these things that you're saying, when it comes to tracking, like if people are taking advantage of the community, who has said that they would not vote, but then ends up voting, being sure to carefully think out resubmissions before posting. Other things like this that, in a sense, like are relatively simple, and that I think do actually cater towards the possibility of maximal agreement. Which brings me to something that I did want to bring up a little bit later, but it makes sense to do this now, is the question of, what level of majority or supermajority do folks think would be good for actually passing an initial code of ethics or any given principle, within the code of ethics? Is it going to be 90%, 80%? That's a relevant question that's going to apply no matter where we are. In terms of development as a DAO and whatever the content of the code of ethics is. So Pulsonius, Bizad, I'm going to bring y'all up. And there we go. Because, right, there's no objective framework that we can look at right now. This is all a matter of consensus building over time. And I think in order to be able to scaffold it moving forward, people are gonna start taking part more and more, especially as this is especially as we get the first couple of articles built in, right? So it's an iterative process. Devocius, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Wastelander, didn't want to interrupt there. But, kind of pulling onto what Socrates was saying, I really think the primary focus for us right now is the code of ethics for the Guardians, right? And you may have already been saying this, but, this having code of ethics for all is going to be really hard to agree on. But the Guardians really have the key to putting the proposal forward, right? If you're in the many and you can influence people to vote whichever way, I mean, that's just part of the DAO, and that's part of the part of crypto. But as far as the code of ethics from the Guardian, I think that's really the starting place for us, and really kind of focusing on, what do we want it to be? How centralized do we want this process to be? As we grow, we're going to have that kind of pain of being too decentralized in a process, right? So we're building some rules around something now that wasn't there. Just kind of keeping that in mind of, what are the steps that we put forward, that we put up on ourselves, that really are going to reflect to the next Guardians too, the next round of Guardians as this, DAO grows. So that was just my thoughts on kind of what, you were saying about how do we get everyone, what's the participation, what's the acceptance rate of this code of ethics, and just wanted to give you my two cents on where I think we should really start the focus of it.
Yeah. I'm very much in alignment with you and Socrates, especially from the perspective of whatever is in the code needs to be actionable. Otherwise, it's just inevitably fluff, right? So when it comes to asking the question, if the code of ethics is about any particular group and it needs to be actionable, then the answer, it should be about the guardianship, is kind of the obvious output. And then that also makes sense as we move forward, into the future, because the guardianship probably is the group that has the most public visibility, right? So it makes sense that there be some kind of minimal values and ethics alignment that's been reached consensus on. What do folks think in general about that, by the way? Having this particular code of ethics starting out at least as being about the guardianship in particular.
I think it makes sense, guys, to start out with a guardianship as well. Once we get that nailed down, we can sort of develop it further and have code of ethics for the many, bringing proposals forward, or other areas. But it makes sense to start with the Guardians, I think, because that's what we've had recent issues with, really, isn't it? So I would go with starting there, yeah.
I really think too it's really the gate, right? It's the first gate of any investment. If a proposal is not put forward, it can't be voted on. So it's really the one place that needs the most focus, because once the proposal is put forward, the many are going to do their job. And I respect whichever way people vote, whether I agree or disagree. I'm going to respect the DAO, but it's ensuring that proposals have a code of ethic before they come forward, and that I really do believe that the Guardian should have some checks and balance, some kind of proposals forward. I mean, I know I wouldn't put one forward without running by certain people, because I'd want to have checks and balances on myself. So anyway, that's kind of my thought on it.
Hey guys, do you mind if I throw in some thoughts?
Yeah, please do, Paulsonius. Thank you.
I feel like I'm always playing devil's advocate, man, but I have some concerns. And it's just around everything that's been going on with all the fighting and I think and I watch and I listen and I came to two conclusions pretty much with what's happening. One, it's inevitable. If you put a bunch of humans together and you have something like a framework in which they're passionate about it, you're just going to have fighting, and it's never going to go away. So that's the first one. The second one is that all the fighting really is just a lack of understanding of what cult is, and what it is it's subjective interpretations trying to win against other subjective interpretations of which way the DAO should go, right? So one of the things I thought is cult is not anything other than code on the blockchain for anybody to use, right? So so one of the concerns I have about this is that there's going to be a pre-existing framework or interpretation in which newcomers have to come in and do cult and apply cult, right? Whereas I believe that as we grow, like let's say we double the amount of active guardians, I believe that they have the right to bypass all of us, use the code in the way they see cult, right? So I think that if we do this code of ethics, it could be done right very, 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 very carefully, but it could be done wrong very, very easily. And so, I definitely had ideas around there should be nothing in there about what is decentralization and how to apply the tenets of cult, because that's so subjective. And if we do put that in the ethics, that's going to be used as a bat to just bat people up on the head how they're not doing cult right? So that's kind of a concern that I have. I have other concerns around guardians, and I heard from guardians, but I thought we should put ourselves in the shoes of people who are looking from the outside in, and maybe they're interested in cult and maybe they want to be a guardian, right? So is there too many layers, and is there a complexity component by which maybe they don't want to engage, right? Because let's consider what they already have to do. They got to put their wallet, they got to dox their wallet. They got to put their reputation on the line, right? They have to work within these systems that are being created. And maybe, so one of the things I thought is what if it's a really strong personality that doesn't work well, but that's brilliant, and that could take the DAO somewhere, but they want to do called their way. I think that they should have the right to just go right to the many and make their case, right? That's decentralization. So those are the cautions I have, is we got to be careful. The other thing is signing the thing to prove that you're not going to, or that you won't vote on multiple wallets. I feel like Tyson's solution takes care of that in a transparent way that's on the blockchain. So I'm just thinking, if it was me, I was in sales. I had an 18-year career, and integrity was one of my it was the thing that gave me success, was doing what's right when no one's looking, right? But I'm not sure I would if I was asked to sign something that I have integrity, right? So I would just say, we got to think around that too. Somebody new coming in, how are they going to respond to that? So they're just concerns. The way you wrote about it, Wastelander, was beautiful. You're a great writer, and it was very well thought out. So those are the things, if we do move forward, extreme caution and the lightest of touches maybe to start. so that people don't use this as saying, hey, look at this, you're not doing cult right, and then they get chased out, right? So that's, and then maybe it creates more fighting. So
thanks so much for your carefully considered thoughts, and also reflecting on the experience that you've had over the years outside of crypto. I actually align a lot like with what you said about integrity, and I have my own thoughts. But before I say anything else, would anybody like to follow up on what Paulsonius just laid out?
No, I think Paulsonius made some good points as well. But I think we can still keep decentralization, but organized decentralization instead of kind of chaotic decentralization. I mean, if you look at most other successful DAOs, they've all got a framework in place. The reason why I guess we haven't is because a lot of DAOs have paid members of staff that put these frameworks in place. We don't, but we have to work within ourselves and just treat it like all those other professional DAOs out there. We have to put a framework in place now, so a couple of months down the line, when new guardians come in, they don't see it as being anything different. It's just the way things are done to them. And maybe some guardians would also welcome a little bit of a framework, a little bit of a guidance, so as they are kind of doing things to the standard that the community's holding them to. But yeah, I see Paulsonius' point of view. We can't be overbearing with it. We have to start off kind of small and gentle and work our way up, I think.
Well said, soldier. Yeah, NFT noob.
Definitely agree with points that Pausanias made, and the fact that it's code and things like that. But I think for me, in my opinion, what the code of ethics means is more the human behavior, in terms of the human element of cult, as opposed to it just being entirely about the blockchain and the technology behind it. And I think it's important for us to have a construct that allows for a bit of guidance in terms of, or I guess not necessarily a definition, or maybe a description in terms of what we do stand for as a community. And I guess the conduct, I guess, that we as a community would uphold within the DAO. I think that's important. And like, I said before, it's just about guidance for everyone to follow by.
yeah, that's a good point. So if I could, I guess my main one would be just nothing in there about what decentralization is. I think that'll create more fighting in our community. But you're right. Conduct is okay. Like if how this is how we like to. I even thought I thought of the Declaration of Independence, right? And maybe we could have, and Wastelander, you'd be the guy because you write so nicely. Is we write something about the ethos of what blockchain is. We pay homage to the fact that the code is law. It exists. People are free to use it, but the many have spoken, and they've outlined ways in which they believe the DAO should conduct itself, right? Something like that, but we acknowledge, like, hey, this thing is fluid, and maybe even in the end, like acknowledging that this document is not binding, and because it is code, and how it could be changed or how it could be interpreted in different ways by different people, right? So something that people could look at it and say, well, okay, I could work with this, but I can do things this way or that way, might be a solution as well. So instead of laws, it's almost like, a code of ethics is it's not really a law. It's a way you want to try to conduct it. You try to adhere to it, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, one quick thing. They have going back to the Rep3, they have this Discord bot or something that's going to be going with Rep3. And NFT Noobs was talking about she wants to bring like the human element back in. And I think it would be really cool if the Discord bot was able to like you can like other people's posts and things like that, and so you can kind of share your love, you know. And yeah, in terms of bringing back the human element, I feel like that type of thing could be something that was tracked because it's like it is kind of on chain ish, you know, and so it's kind of like a metric that can be tracked and used for these badges, but it's also kind of bringing the human element back. It's like the relationships you have online. Yeah, I think that's a cool possibility there.
Yep, well said. Yeah, Steve Oshie, and then blockchain boogie after Steve Oshie.
Yeah, first of all, I love what Noob said there about the human factor. I really think that we've got to be careful, right? Something that Pulsonian was saying about the Declaration of Independence, right? That was written 300 years ago, and there's a lot of interpretation today that's very different than the meaning behind that then, right? And we know we're at least going to be around for 267 years before we get rugged by Mr. O. So, we've got to think of something that's fluid, that isn't, in absolutes. I think it has to be more of a, in my mind, the biggest gate here is on the Guardian proposal. The two ways to mitigate that is one, more people need to vote. In my mind, there's 2 trillion votes available that aren't being voted on. So, that should be a huge focus, is how do we get multiple trillions of votes by the many? And what is some small rules that the Guardians can't manipulate for personal gain or for a gain of some people in the community. So I really think that's the first gate to tackle. I mean, if I've got a crazy idea and no other Guardian believes it, but the many are like, wow, that's a great idea, and and they put votes behind it. I mean, that was the true, essence of the DAO, as long as I meet the free tiers, sorry. So, yeah, there's just some thoughts around as we pull this together. I would hate to overreact because of all the fighting that I feel has been a really small group of people causing a lot of noise over the last month or so.
Yeah, what you just said, Steve. There, that is so important. That's one of my concerns. Like you just said it, right? Like you're so strongly opinionated and you believe, but you're getting like within the systems that we've created to vet the protocol, right? But you like sometimes a lot of people could be wrong and one person could be right, right? I want you to feel like you could just go right to the many and do it. And I just want to be very careful that there's not within these systems, we're not creating like deterrents, right? To step outside of the box. So yeah, that was very well said.
Wastelander, can I respond to that as well?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for taking time on the next person. Yeah, and that's where I think when we look at code of ethics, things that are rules or guidelines saying, hey, Steve Oshie, you can't own, 5% of the supply before you put this proposal forward, and you've got the many behind you for this proposal, and all the Guardians are saying, no, you shouldn't put this forward because we see what you've done. Like that's where I see the code of ethics coming in and what's really needed more than, like you said, the definition of decentralization and really trying to put, cult DAO into a box.
Yep, well said. Hey, blockchain boogie, did you wanna say anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say good morning. I was just saying good morning, newbie. That's my girl right there. Good morning, Bubs.
Hi, Boogie.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Just wanted to stop in the space and catch up what's going on with code. So we're creating a code of ethics. Is that what I understand? Trying to
Yeah.
combat some of this stuff, what to say, that's been going on lately.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to kind of like thread the needle in a few different ways between the dichotomies of decentralization and centralization, disorganization and organization, and then abiding by the expressed voice of the many, and then you know that it would basically be in tension with, well, we don't want to become too centralized, right? So the way to thread like those multiple needles, in my mind, is to build a system which is flexible from the outset and is responsive to the voices and ideas of everybody, right? So this is why I didn't start out with a code of ethics that has concrete, like specifically defined, shackles for people. In the Discord, what you'll see at first is I kind of like go through pains in order to make clear that there are like some minimal criteria that the code of ethics should have, but I didn't want to define exactly what it should look like, because from the get-go, it needs to be a system that is responsive to what people are saying, right? So that's kind of like where we are right now. This is the very first code of ethics space where we're discussing the ins and outs of what that actually looks like in process.
Right on, man.
Guys, can I just say, well, it might be pretty obvious that I'm saying, but to actually get anywhere with this, we're going to have a huge amount of community participation. So we're going to have a big campaign to make people aware that the code of ethics is going on. It'd be great to get as many people to participate in putting forward ideas around what the code of ethics should be. Then it'd be even better if we could sort of get a vote on Snapshot with really good participation, so it's all on chain. Then basically the code of ethics could be for somebody that, there you go, 80% of the community voted that, for example, they think a guardian with a side bag using it to vote on his own proposal is morally wrong, and 80% of 200 community members or whatever has voted on this. And for each code, we vote on it. And some might pass, some might fail, but that'll leave us with a core set of ethics, really.
I like the way that sounds, but question: How is there any way to override or overrule, like how we had that last vote with the economists, right? The first round got voted down because of the, I'll just, I don't even, the facetious acts of others, right? Like they did something funky with the votes and all that, right? Now it passed because, I don't know, we had more support this time around or whatever, right? We had more votes than that other wallet did. So is there any way to overrule things in the future, like how we did this time with the economists? Like is it some kind of voting, or is it some kind of like how are we gonna over, I don't even know what the right word is, like how are we gonna pass a vote that should be passed, like the economists did pass, when they have guardians with their wallets set up the way that last one was, right? Like, is there something that we can do to bypass, like with this code of ethics, like we're trying to do now? Is there a way to, I don't know, in some kind of code, is there a way to write further code on top of this, or are we like, I don't know what we're trying to accomplish here. Like how can we be sure that we're creating something that's going to be able to combat what we saw in the past, right?
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And I don't think there's not a sufficient condition for blocking certain things, right? And I would never want that, right? But there are certain necessary things that we can do to ensure that more people are voting over time, right? So one thing underneath that is increasing knowledge of like, okay, you actually do have to delegate, even if you're delegating to yourself. Like, it can be counterintuitive. Like, shouldn't I only have to delegate like if I'm delegating to somebody else? But it happens to be the case that no, you actually have to delegate to your own wallet if you do want to vote. And then other things like increasing participation level and awareness of like what proposals actually are, right? So like, let's say there's a certain level of good information and then bad information about a proposal at any particular time. It really helps to have participation in spaces and VCs and people actually reading the white papers to know what's going on, right? Because then they're more likely to know and promote the fact that voting is really, really important. And then the second thing I'd add after that, right, to not ever like be able to control things, but rather to increase the odds of participation, really is having a system which accentuates the fact that right now at this given point in time, this is what the voice of the many looks like. Right now in this point in time, whether it's right now or a month from now, this is what's been voted on via Snapshot. These are the ideas that everybody has democratically, sought to like add their voice behind, and this is what the agreement is. And the way to change that is to add your own voice if you'd like. But one voice per vote. Yeah, go ahead.
What if we like because like I see like in my humble opinion, revolt is kind of underutilized right now, right? Like a lot of proposals being voted down. Like I don't see a lot of utility behind our revolt token, right? Like I mean it's there, it will be utilized in such a way, but what if we incentivize people to vote using the revolt token? You know, like I mean, I guess maybe put a proposal forward to reward people that are voting, so that we get more participation around these votes, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, because like the revolt token's supposed to be for acts of revolt, right? Well, I mean, what better way than making your own voice heard? You know, like maybe we can get a proposal to rally people around voting. You know.
I'm certainly open to like creative ideas and suggestions, including what you just mentioned. To kind of broaden that point, and then Tyson, if you want to say anything, but really quickly, when it comes to any given part of the cult ecosystem that isn't being utilized perhaps as fully, then it bears pointing out that maybe there are ways that we can utilize those parts in order to solve problems that we have right now. Revolt could very well be a source for solving the kinds of problems that we're looking at the moment. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Tyson, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks. I think Soldier's idea was excellent, that there should be like almost a guide or a handbook, if you will, like a cult handbook, where the code of ethics is voted on chain. That's going to be the best way to make sure it is the voice of the many. And like Soldier said, participation will be paramount there. And I think a good first thing to vote on would be, and it's very clear and obvious, but Guardians should not be voting on side bags, right? Which the manifesto calls, but I think everyone agrees on that. And if we could put an on-chain vote and then add it to some sort of either blockchain handbook or offline handbook that references a vote, that would be awesome. And then I think the point of this, in my mind, is going to be to allow conversations to be had in a more diplomatic way when people feel like things are being done that are awry. For example, Guardians should not vote on side bags. Okay, now we all agree on that. We should vote on it, and then we could put a report around that, right, which I'm working on. And then when something pops on that report, it's going to be an easy way to reference those voted on guidelines and say, yes, this is against what the many feel is comfortable, but it will also allow people to have conversations without getting immediately combative. For example, perhaps a Guardian has a brother or a wife or a family member that they've transferred cult to, okay? And then that person is voting. So we see in the next vote, when this report is live, that, Gambling Whale is, right, a Guardian, and all of a sudden we get a hit that a wallet that's linked to his or he has sent cult to is voting on a proposal. Well, that will allow us to then have a discussion without immediately accusing him of something, saying, look, we see this linked wallet is voting. Is this yours? And he might say, yes. And we would say, okay, don't do that. That's against the rules. Or he might say, actually, that is a wedding gift that I gave to my cousin, right? And then the DAO is allowed to have a discussion and say, okay, should we filter this wallet out of the report? So I think that would be the value of having everything on chain, right? Because if we come up with a code of ethics and it's not voted on, it's just what some people think and not possibly what the many think. And then around each of those kind of code of ethic points, we could have kind of standard operating procedures and look to put technology around them where we can. So when things do come up, it just allows for more diplomatic conversation. So I'm bullish on the whole idea, and think at an early formation of a DAO like this, it would be such a valuable tool to promote transparency and just keep people on the same page. So that's all I had to say.
I agree completely with all of that. Thank you so much, Tyson. Soldier, did you want to add anything really fast? No pressure.
No, yeah, just what Tyson said. Exactly my sentiments. Yeah, I think that's the best way forward. And I'd love to hear other ideas, but yeah, that sounds like the best way forward in my eyes so far. And to get it all recorded and on chain's essential. Yeah.
Yeah, a condition for anything happening is democratic voting on chain, right? So an initial timeline, right? We're gonna miss the arbitrary November 5th, you know, goal that I had in, but I really just put the timeline in to spur alternatives. But the best thing to do in my mind, and it's exactly what you guys are saying, is to have at least one article, right? Which is the rule that people should try to follow, verification method, and then what happens, if anything, if people who agreed to that rule don't actually follow it, right? Those are the three minimal necessary conditions for any part of a code of ethics being useful at all, right? So in my mind, like what I've heard so far is people talking about in this space and then on Discord and other channels, like the need to watch out for side wallets, voting, that kind of thing. Yeah, Tyson, go ahead.
Can we use that example as the first quote unquote code of ethics that we could vote on and then add to some sort of living document where we reference, there has been a matter that has been discussed that guardians should not vote, right, from their guardian wallet. And the protocol protects against that via the solidity that doesn't allow them to vote, right? But in further discussions, the many, it's been brought to the attention that there might be voting going on side bags. This is not allowed. We should vote on that. I think everyone will vote, yes, it should not be allowed. And then, like you said, we should put concrete, like I forget how you phrased it. You're going to phrase it better than I did, but we should put action around that. What are the preventative measures to check for that? Okay, there's a Dune report. What is that Dune report doing? Okay, cool. And then what if that report triggers, right? What are the necessary actions after that? And it kind of becomes a decision tree. Like it becomes a discussion amongst the community. And, either this happens or that happens. And that would be, I think, a really good way to get the process going, where it's on chain, we have protection in place, and then we just need to define what we do as a community. But we also have to understand as a community, there's only so much you can do, right? But it becomes, the many that then gets angry. It's not like we can blacklist wallets, but it's there, and it becomes something that is not subjective, right? It is what it is, and that's how the DAO operates. So that would be my suggestion, to use that test case as the first quote unquote official code of ethics, and we actually figure out a way to put it to a vote and then document it somehow. And then we can have a living, breathing document that represents the cult code of ethics.
Yep. Well said. The gap currently, right, is how, the part of the decision tree, which comes into play like after, the query that you're developing is implemented, right? So, and that gap in my mind can be filled by what Socrates, Soldier, and then others have been working on as far as the Rep 3 proposal. Perusing the code of ethics will, I think, Tyson, like you've already seen it, right? But the idea is that anybody who signs what has been ratified is representing the voice of the many. Anybody who signs that then gets a minimal level of badge, which can then be downgraded or upgraded according to what is actually visible on chain, right? That kind of thing. Yeah, Steve Oshie, and then Socrates. I think you had your hand up and then you put it down. I'm not sure, but Steve Oshie.
Yeah, I think as well. I'm hoping that this kind of code of ethics, or how we write this up, is really going to give some grace to the guardians too, right? Like these are people who are just trying to put forward the DAO and get things done, and if these few things are taken care of, like side bags and things like that, then we can give grace in areas where, let's say, somebody puts a proposal forward in it and it fails, and the community aren't coming at that guardian saying, "Hey, that was a crappy proposal." In my real life world, we work in the spaces of yield, and usually, low risk, low yield, high risk, high yield, and that's kind of like how we have to, think about it, is just as an investment opportunity that hey, this was high risk with a high return. It could fail. There's a 60% probability that it doesn't work, but please don't, put me on a stake because it didn't come off,
Yep. So well said. And the ability to say like, what I did is defensible is that can all be like completely visible, right? I completely agree. Like a lot of things that people in the guardianship or in the many or like, any kind of like overlapping category between those, that all deserves like grace a lot of the time, right? So there's also like a praise system that we can build in to, acknowledge and like say, yeah, these people did this really, really well. Let's acknowledge it. Let's have it, some objective criteria for building people's reputations, that kind of thing.
I have a question. So what do we do when a guardian just doesn't care about any of this stuff and they just do whatever they want?
So they would like let's say that anybody does whatever they want, right? Guardian or otherwise. I realize guardianship is the relevant category at the moment. I think like it's not necessarily about stopping people. It's about showing everybody that there was a way for them to sign on to what the meeting agreed to before they actually did whatever it was they did. Like they tried to rush through a proposal, they bought votes, they gave their votes to somebody else, whatever it was, right? As far as like responsiveness to kind of like rogue actors in general, really, I think the best thing to do is build community responsiveness over time, right? To that kind of thing. A condition for that actually working in turn is having this kind of voted on-chain document. Well, the document isn't on-chain, right? But the verification system can be implemented via like on-chain procedures, is having that kind of thing in place. Like let's say you have like a rogue guardian that tries to do things their own way, regardless of like where their heart is in the right place. But like let's say for the just for the sake of the example, like they never try to interface with the meanie, and we have no idea who they are. Then like let's say that happens a month from now, right? Then everybody can see that happened because they don't have the initial badge. There was never a workshop put up, right? There's a track record of them not like interfacing in the ways everybody else had agreed on. Yeah, Tyson.
I have to hop in 2 seconds, but one thing that I think would be really cool is if the document was on chain. I bet you there's a way, like, I'm not too sure how snapshot voting works, but I think we should try and design this so the snapshot vote happens, and then I can build an entire new Dune dashboard for the code of ethics, and it could show historically every single thing that's been voted on and whether it's passed or failed. So in one section of the dashboard, you could view passed or failed, and on another section of the dashboard, you can view just passed. And what represents just passed is the current code of ethics. That way, it's not in a shared document or some off-chain method. And I think if we did it that way, it would be like very bullish to bring up at ETH Denver and say like, here's our on-chain code of ethics, and we've had problems as a community, and we've used the blockchain to respond to those problems. That would be like the most bullish possible thing. So, assuming my kids nap today, I'm going to start looking around for snapshot things like that, where you can actually store different things online, like or on chain. But if anyone else has any experience, that would be a super helpful tool, and I think it'd be pretty easy for us to build.
Thanks, Tyson. I wasn't going to say that, but thank you for bringing it up. I don't have the expertise that you do when it comes to building out queries and that kind of thing. So brilliant point. And, I think different people had like voiced the following point, like in different ways, this space and then like others. There are a lot of people that have been in DAOs for like a much longer period than me. A lot of them will be at ETH Denver, right? A lot of them have built social layer infrastructure like this before. There's a way that we can interface and put our flag up, which says, okay, y'all, look, this is the kind of thing that we really care about. This is putting our flag in the ground. This is a DAO. We're progressing forward, and we're doing it in a systematic, intelligent way, which doesn't sacrifice the values of decentralization. And on the contrary, it actually optimizes for representing the voice of the many and decentralization in on chain systems like what you just mentioned. So anybody else who's speaking right now, feel free to say stuff. I don't mind if you don't raise your hand. Yeah, Socrates.
Just a random thought. It would be really cool if we could get like the 10 Commandments. Like figure out what like the top 5 or top 10 are, and then put that into a live proposal, and then have that proposal like stamp it onto the chain, because that text is saved forever. So if we can get like an initial set of things, or for example, like if we're going to do the Guardians don't vote on chain, and that passes, maybe we can like collect 10 of them and then ratify them all at once or something. But again, now I'm saying that out loud. Maybe we don't need to if it's already on Snapshot. So anyways, I thought it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Like, let's say that the snapshot doesn't like meet some other criteria, then maybe we'd want to add it on chain. I think, yeah, like per what you and Tyson were saying, the idea is just that everybody can refer back to what was agreed on, right? And then that's not changeable. It's not on my Google Drive, for example.
I have one more maybe idea. So it's just embracing the differences within our community, but maybe putting it on to the code of ethics. So one of the things I thought is, because it's code, right? Like, to stop all this fighting is we make room for differing interpretations of what decentralization means, right? And how to move the DAO forward. So I thought we should be happy with other people coming in and creating a little niche of members that push cult the way they see cult, right? So, and if we had these different factions with the understanding that ultimately it's up to the many, that would actually give us the freedom to have differing views, right? Maybe we could put something in there that affirms the subjective nature of what it means to have decentralization and to push forward decentralization, so that if it's elucidated, people can't use it as a wedge issue to say, hey, look at this doesn't meet the criteria properly, right? So we, maybe something, it's like almost like a positive interpretation that allows for the differing views to exist. And then you refer to the fact that really it's up to the many, so it's not up to us to say what is perfect decentralization or not. That would go a long way as well, right? So, and then people can't use the document. Well, they could use the document now and say, hey, look, people can have different understandings of what decentralization is. I'll give you an example, like Hex. If somebody put up Hex, that would be a crazy contentious proposal, right? But I could make a case why I think it promotes decentralization. And there's going to be a lot of people on the other side who say, well, Richard Hurd, and he's got most of the supply, and there'd be a lot of fighting. But when, I might have a different idea of why it promotes decentralization, and the other person might just stick to that one premise, right? So why it's not. You can never get those people to meet minds. So you have to allow for that to come forth and let the people decide, right? So anyways, that's kind of a suggestion I have.
I think it's a beautiful suggestion. It's like, you're offering a way to build in a decentralized understanding of what decentralization amounts to, which to me is the only way that it can be done. Right? So that's brilliant. Thank you, Poslonius. Yeah, and it only makes sense also to do it that way. I would add, like, there's the additional benefit of we get people involved like at that level, then we incentivize more delegation right over time, communication on the Discord, interfacing with other communities, right? As people not necessarily like try to like compete to garner support like for their own views, but gonna like spread the ideas that we're all aware of are on behalf of decentralization is something that we're always and already kind of like building together, right? Like, I don't think there's a truth out there as to what decentralization is. It's something that we build and enact and think about together, and that's how we find out what it is. Not to be too cheesy about it. By the way, anybody want to on our request to speak. If you have any responses, if you have questions about what the space is about, feel free to raise your hand. Also, side note, I have a bit of a cold. That's why I keep sniffing. Sorry if that's annoying for anybody.
Hey guys, I got to run for now, but I just wanted to thank everybody that's turned up today and took some time out their Saturday. That's really bullish. And like, we're not in a rush to do this code of ethics. We're not going to rush into anything. So there's plenty of time for anybody that doesn't like speaking on spaces, perhaps, to voice their opinion on TG, Discord, Twitter, wherever you like, and get it picked up and get your point heard, because your point is as valuable as anyone else's. You're one of the many. So I'm going to go for now, guys, but have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks, Soldier. You too, man. Thanks for all that you do.
Yeah, I wanted to follow that too. Yeah, I really like the direction of this, and I do think taking our time figuring this out, because, I like the idea of having a code to help Guardians. Just, I mean, it might not be malicious. It might just be lack of education. I mean, I've got staked tokens. I don't really know much about crypto, which probably could scare the crap out of people. But I just think that, having that grace around it, and I keep anchoring on, I see Gambling Whale in here, and I've seen his tweets about trying to get people to delegate. I mean, that is so important right now. We have 2 trillion available votes, and we have to get them, because the quicker we get those people voting, this takes away a lot of these issues. Like, it is impossible for anyone to do any kind of, wrongdoing, as there's more people voting, and people have, the many have way more of a sized bag compared to a few people in a community.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, the difference in terms of voting power of the many versus like any subset of Guardians is honestly like a laughable ratio. So well said there. Guardian for the many, journey to free the many. You requested to speak. What's up, my friend?
Hey, oh, how are we?
Doing well. How are you, dude?
Good, thanks. Thanks, Wastelander, for putting on the space. I just got a curious mind. So this is all about the Guardian, is it?
It can be. That's what we focused on so far. I'm okay with that.
So just my only question is, like, are you gonna do the same code of ethics for the many as well?
I think that's not up to me. That's up to everybody and ideas that they have around what the code of ethics and any other kind of like document that's part of the infrastructure should look like.
I was just had a thought. So obviously the Guardian's got a lot more voting power. At the moment, I'm not sure if it's 100% sure right. So people, for example, if I'm one of the many, not a Guardian, so if I was like, if people wanted to, they can delegate their vote to me. Is that right?
Anybody can delegate to anybody else. I would just say that even like a slightly larger percentage of folks who are not Guardians voting would swamp Guardians voting, by the way.
So the point I'm going to make is like, so if a lot of people, say billions of vote is delegated to me to vote on their behalf, isn't that like sort of similar to a Guardian when it comes to voting power?
I think the point could be made that it's similar in some ways, dissimilar in some ways, right? There's the linear kind of comparison of pure amount of votes, right? So if somebody gives me, I don't know, 75 billion, then technically that's probably going to be more than what any other single Guardian could do. On the other hand, this is it's dissimilar in the sense that it's harder to track that, right? And it's the sort of thing that kind of like following what Paulsonius was saying. I'm not sure if you were here for that. It's sort of like a natural extension of what decentralization means, right? As people start to interpret how things work in their own minds. I might also add that when it comes to delegating, you can delegate to other people, you can delegate to yourself, but delegation is actually not like a nice to have. If you want a voice in the proposal system, it's a must have. Because if you don't delegate, then you can click vote. It actually doesn't count. So that's encoded. We can't change that.
Yeah, so like what I'm saying is like if a lot of people delegated their votes to myself, my wallet, and then a proposal is put up, I can essentially influence that result because of say I got 100 billion worth of delegated votes. Essentially, I can be the dominant voice on that proposal. Is that right?
Yeah, like assuming no other changes, right? If everybody knows that it's possible for that to happen, then everybody is incentivized to start voting and delegating, right? It only dominates relative to the amount that other people are delegating. There's always been that potential. I think it's around building things out over time and increasing the knowledge that we all have to delegate, especially before things really like kick off. If that's 2023, like any given quarter, whenever it is. But yeah, technically you're right.
So basically, we should put that into the code of ethic too, that everybody that gets given delegated vote by the many shouldn't be allowed to say have like 5 billion of the voting power. I don't know. I'm just trying to. Obviously, we try to put something in place, and in my thinking is like when you have a lot, if somebody that's not a guardian have a lot of influence on the many, and the many give him or her all those votes, essentially, that is not right as well. Like compared to somebody that's like a guardian that's got too much voting power. Do you get what I mean?
I'm not sure you could have that though, because you're taking that the people that do the delegation, that's their voice, right? And if they delegate to the person and they trust that person, that's their choice. So it would be hard to build that in, and probably unfair too if you tried to work it into. And then the code allows for it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, to build off of what you just said, Pulsonius, which also responds to what you were saying, Taraki. Um, to me, like delegation only makes sense if there's some kind of process for tracking why any given person delegated their votes to that other person that they then trust to do the right thing on their behalf, right? It doesn't make sense to delegate to somebody else and then like never open up Discord again, right? So there's a way to like build in tracking processes so that I can undelegate if I want to, because I've seen, okay, this person actually didn't do what I thought they were going to do and what they said they were going to do, right? So like for a given proposal, it could happen, but the idea is to maximize the odds of people being able to respond over time if what they thought was going to happen wasn't happening. But yeah, it is
Yeah, man.
in the code. Yeah.
Yeah, like I brought that up because obviously we talking about the Guardian having quite a lot of voting power. But the way I see it, if somebody that's quite good at influencing the many, and somehow they get delegated a lot of votes, and obviously once you delegate, it's up to the individual to vote on their behalf, and whatever that individual votes, if it's like to put an upvote for that proposal or downvote, obviously the individual that's voted on behalf of the many, they got a lot of influence on the exact proposal. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's the context around that possibility, which I think is really important to attend to, which is if everybody knows that, right, then we're all going to start delegating. That improves the functioning of the DAO a whole lot, right, at a number of levels, not just voting percentages, but insofar as people understanding what they're voting on and interfacing and networking with proposals that we've been supporting. So there's actually a bullish side to that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to just like available votes, yeah, that's always going to be true. Like between any given guardian and then any given delegator wallet. And to reiterate a little bit like of what I guess I was trying to say before is it's always like looking down the line, right? So if that happened at point A, then at point B, what can happen is people can say, I didn't agree with that. You were falsely representing what you're going to do on my behalf and on behalf of other people who are delegating to you. And now I'm going to take away the delegated votes, right? That's essential for the social layer and how the social layer interacts with the coded part, which allows for delegation, right? And you can undelegate your votes like pretty easy. You just delegate them again to yourself, I believe. Hopefully that makes sense, by the way. I'm not trying to be like too obtuse about that, but it's always like what happens at a given point in time and then how people respond and building the kinds of things right now which allow people to respond appropriately.
Yeah, like, so basically what I've been hearing lately is because of the Guardians been using their vote to like vote up or down a certain proposal, right? So say for example they had 20 or 50 billion worth of voting power, well, they can influence majority of that proposal. However, you can say that essentially on one of them, the person that's not a Guardian, which say influencer or myself, if they delegate all their votes to me and say I had 20 or 30 billion votes, I essentially can influence that certain proposal exactly the same reason why we trying to avoid it. So what I'm trying to say is like you're essentially doing the same shit. It's just with individual amongst the many. So to me, we need to like if we're gonna do something about the Guardian, we also need to do something about a normal person that's a many that got given the voting right on behalf of other many. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand you. Steve Oshie.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to respond to that because in my mind, I think it back to the gates of the process. I mean, the critical gate is the proposal. So if there's code of ethics around the Guardians, then that's going to hopefully put proposals forward that are in the best interest of the DAO. After that, I don't really see an issue if someone is willing to trust somebody else with their voice. That's their decision. That is them working in the DAO. They are picking a person to vote for them, and if that swings the majority, well, then so be it. We the system is built where we should have 2 trillion worth of votes in each proposal. If 20-30 billion is impacting it, then well, good for them. They put their money on the line and they put their votes forward. So I mean, I just think I think the focus here is we need to get more people voting, understand that the many have the majority. I mean, 100 million votes, 100 million decult held by 5,000 people is like 500 billion. I'm doing the math in my head. I hope that's not wrong. But, so I think it all boils back to that critical point of a proposal going forward. If a proposal goes forward in good faith that has followed the code of ethics, the Guardian doesn't have a side bag voting. It's put in a way to try and enhance DAO and decentralization. Whether it wins or fails, it doesn't matter. They did their job ethically, and now the many get to do their thing, and participation will always win.
Well said.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that point up. Yeah, thank you very much for letting me up. Thank you, Wastelander, and
Yep, your voice
everybody on the
matters.
panel.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. It's kind of like how we respond to any possibility actually, coming up in the future. Gambling Whale, so you're up here.
Hey, sorry guys. I was in and out of the space through this morning, so don't want to repeat myself. But I agree with Steve Orsi that the main problem stops from the get-go with the proposal itself. So I don't see an issue in terms of how it's voted afterwards, as long as it in line with the manifesto, and that the intentions behind the proposal are good. And in terms of voting power with the delegation is concerned, previously the reason was because of gas fees, right? So that excuse kind of goes away. So if you are in a position to where you are active and your concern was the gas fee, then I would take those votes back so that you have more of a voice and are relying on somebody who's voting for you. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that there is no way to stop delegated votes from being in the hands of one or two people, just because that's the way the system is designed, right? And I think transparency around that may be at play, that if you have been delegating your votes, and it's a lot of votes, right, because it matters on the weightage, then maybe disclose that so that these people are aware of who it is that's controlling it. But even then, there is no way to be measured. Oh, and one last thing. I think if my math is correct, there is in total 1.4 trillion potential votes that can be voted on, because the top 50 wallets, the cult wallets, control roughly 45%, which can't vote anyway. So I think the number is close to 1.4 trillion. And with the latest proposal, 166 billion was voted on, if you count the ones that didn't delegate properly. So I think each proposal, as the number increases, I know Koss had once mentioned that he is hoping for 250 billion to be the high-end number, that if we can reach that, then it would be truly, it would be a true democracy in terms of not having too much voting power on one side. So hopefully, each proposal going forward, we'll see 150 to 200 billion votes coming in consistently. And once we kind of get that to be the new norm, then I think the issues will resolve on their own.
Well said. Yeah, a metric for assessing kind of like the democratic function of all of this is number of votes increasing over time per proposal, and then the number of people who voted but didn't delegate, that decreasing over time, and hopefully trending quickly towards zero over time. So well said.
Oh, I do have one more thing. Again, not sure if I'm repeating myself, but one of the things that I believe Arcturus is working on is, if your delegated votes are set to zero, that you won't even see the submit button. So you won't be able to vote at all, because what's the point of voting 0-0? So hopefully once that gets enabled, if that's what they're working on, then that would solve a major problem of people who are actually voting not understanding their votes are not being counted, because a lot of people may be voting who are not in Telegram or Twitter to even see our post about it. So I think once that starts, you might see a big shift in the amount of votes coming in.
Yeah, well said. I'm not sure how visible that fact was. Thank you for bringing that up, Gambling Whale. Taraki, did you want to say anything else, by the way, just in case you wanted to respond to any of that?
Nah, man, I'm pretty happy, man. I just ask questions because obviously we've got concern over the Guardians having a lot of voting power, like they shouldn't be voting, stuff like that, or side backs or whatever. To me, I've heard in the past, like some of the proposals that got passed, there was a bit of influence from delegated wallets. So that's why I brought up the questions like, hey, obviously the Guardians are not the only issues. Like, take me for example, you give me all your votes, and then like you trust me to vote on your behalf, and then I do it. All I'm saying is like I've got influence on that proposal. To be honest, you know what I mean. Same thing as same thing. If a Guardian's got a lot of tokens, which say over 30 or 40 billion, right? And then they got two friends together to vote, or like whatever wallet they're using. They can have a lot of influence on the outcome of that proposal. That's I'm pretty much trying to bring that to the surface of like what has happened in the past, and what could possibly happen in the future when, like, people delegate their votes to, like, a normal person, which is part of the person outside of the top 50, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right. It plays the same function. It's functionally equivalent. Therefore, perhaps there could be an analogous article in the Code of Ethics to what we've been talking about when it comes to Guardian side bags, right? So for other people who have just joined, and to add on to my response to what Taraki is saying, which is an extremely valid. Sorry, my phone's kind of blowing up here. And really critical point is that there's a way to develop consensus over time, which is currently in the Code of Ethics channel in the Discord, right? So it's a plug and play method. What you can say is, let's have this principle be here, which we want to track what delegation amounts to. This is how we verify it, and then this is what happens if anybody doesn't like actually follow that. I'm not advocating any particular outcome there. There's merely the possibility of building that in, and then if you want your voice to be heard, I think it's important to respond in the Discord, and then it's very easy to build that part of the Code of Ethics forward, and then people can vote on that, when it goes up for snapshot. Yeah, Steve Oshie.
Yeah, hey, I was just thinking as Journey was speaking there too. One of the things I always keep in my mind too is that there's no critical investment failure. How the system is built in, that there's only 15 ETH each time the time you do the burn. So we can get this wrong quite a few times before we really get it right, and we can learn things quickly because proposals are put forward quickly, and we can see if there's any. And I don't want to say gaps because that would allude to the code. There's no gaps in the code. It's just there's always going to be, anytime there's money involved, there's going to be somebody trying to manipulate and take advantage. It's just how do we put gaps and gates in place to help stop that, and realize that we don't get too impacted or emotional because I say only 15 ETH. I know that's a lot of money, but when it comes to the DAO and the treasury, it really is a small percentage over the time that we're going to have funds in the treasury.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective because it's a crystal clear way of looking at the fact that ultimately it's responsiveness, right, that really matters. Not like a particular point on the graph which says like this happened at point A. It's what comes after and that whole graph of like how the social consensus layer is functioning over time, right? So what that in a particular output to what you just said is it gives the chance to respond and build in gates and build in checks and balances if that happens, right? And the Code of Ethics right now is kind of like a generator for building those kinds of gates. So yeah, well said, y'all.
I think expectations too, right? I mean, when we do an autopsy of the investments over the last 12, 18 months, I mean, if we've hit 100%, then we didn't do it right. I mean, we should be in my mind, we should be hitting a ratio of 20% max, right? If we've really tried to move decentralization forward and max, the free tiers of the investment strategy, our, win probability should be relatively low if we are truly doing it and trying to do it right.
Yeah, I agree with 100% with that actually. And I'd say like win-loss probability or like if stuff is revoted should also be seen in light of like how many people are voting over time as a function of like how many people could be voting, right? If something like if there weren't any negative votes, right, then that doesn't really like say as much in the context of like other proposals that that pass with like a lot of attention, right? But yeah, I agree with you. That's a really great like quantitative take on it. Thanks for that. And Journey to Free the Mini. I really appreciate everything that you said. I just wanted to reiterate that it's never about me being critical. I hope you know that, my friend. I just want to build with you.
Man. I appreciate what you're doing right now, man. You're sitting in a process that we can sort of like, I don't know, it's like a standard that we uphold. Like standards are good. And we try to work that out at the minute. And it's good that we out here trying to discuss, and hopefully some of the people down that's not up here speaking can come up here and add their two cult to it, because the more ideas we have, the better that we can move forward. That's what I believe. So I've said my two cult, but please, whoever's down there, come up and share your view on how we can make this movement better. Essentially, we all care about the whole thing. That's why we're here discussing ideas and on how we can make it better moving forward. So please come up and share your thoughts.
100,000%. Please feel free to speak, ask questions, anything. Floor is open for anybody to come up.
Yeah, I only mention what I mentioned because I've heard in the past that of certain delegated voted a lot more than anyways. But yeah, I thought I'll share my thoughts. It's only a thought, and I've shared it, and people down there, please come up and share your thought, or even contributing on how we can make the voting side of things better, or even how we can educate the people on to vote more. The more ideas we share together, the better cult's going to be in the future. So we're going to be here a long time, and more than four brains better than. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the more brains we put together, the better. Not just four brains or five brains. Make it 1,000 brains together. We're going to be more better going forward.
Yeah, I think the point of the Tao is to manifest the principle and truth that we can build towards. The power of the people can be greater than the people in power, right? For any given system. This is how we build that. Also, heads up, I think it was Noob earlier. Maybe it was somebody else. No, it was NFT Noob. She's not there anymore, obviously, but you can see in the Jumbotron above, if you scroll all the way up, the thread on Discord. It happens to be the most recent comment from So Great Socrates, right? But feel free to go and peruse all that. It's a bit of a read at this point, because a lot of people have been weighing in with particular ways to build this out, right? Particular add-ons to the social layer and all that. I'm gonna keep this open for about another 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, thank you to everybody who's come up to speak, and as always, feel free to raise your hand. I would add that this has been really productive, and it's a model for how things can optimally progress. And the only other thing that I would say is that there's no perfect way to bootstrap how a DAO functions, right? Because to do that, for there to be a perfect way or a standard, would be to presuppose some process of centralization, which serves as that standard of bedrock. What we're trying to do is define how to move forward, but in doing that, we're doing that. We're kind of doing the same thing at the same time, right? The process of manifesting what decentralization is itself a decentralized process, and in my mind, over the last week or two, we've been doing a great job at that. Yeah, Whiplash, I'm gonna set you a speaker. 1 second, my friend. Takes a few seconds for somebody to be able to come up. I see you connecting right now. Go ahead, Whiplash.
Wastelander, what's up, bro?
Hey, dude. Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear you as well, man. Amazing.
Hey, brother. How are you?
Hey, Journey. What's up, Doraki? Doing well, bro?
I'm living the dream, brother. I'm where I belong.
Let's fucking go, bro. Let's fucking go. Just coming up here to say hi and welcome our new welcome a new family member into the cult community, Miss Thread Girl, Habibti. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. And yeah, man, code of ethics. Yeah, I need you guys can figure out a way. I'm sure, like, definitely, if you're having a code of ethics set for the Guardians, it would be a good idea to set one for the many as well. You know, we don't want to be left out. So yeah, just one more thing, Thread Girl, Habibti, stake your cult. Stake your cult. This way, you get more cult. Because the only way you'd be benefiting from the cult you have is with, um, you know, staking, and then all these proposals that we have out. We have over 1.7, I think 1.7 million, if I'm right, Wastelander, dollars out.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have 1.7 million dollars of investments that are out, and they're very nice investments. And with Cult, you get to see a lot of amazing projects, especially like the one NFT Noobs is going with. I'm sorry, Wastelander, I'm just using this time to explain it to Thread Girl because I asked her to join Noob Space just a while ago, but I think she was busy. But yeah, just have a look at it. You'll love it. It's amazing. A lot of opportunity there. And I love you guys. Love you all. Talk about cult.
Love you too, Whiplash. To follow up on the wisdom that you just shared, there's another D word after decult. Delegate.
Yes,
Delegate to
sir.
yourself, delegate to others. Otherwise, you can have all the decult in the world. You click submit right now. That's not going to actually count against people voting the other way, right? So do delegate. It's a very, very easy process. The other thing I would add is that when it comes to, say, like code of ethics for the Mani or any other document, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Paulsonius, maybe it was Steve Oshie. A really wise point on procedure was made earlier, which is that if we can build in an initial code, right, for the guardianship, which it sounds like that's the consensus, unsurprising, then that bootstraps our ability to do the same thing for the Mani and to refine anything else that comes after that, right? So it looks like we have a lot of great thoughts on what this involves, and then we also have a way to move forward, which is one particular part of the code of ethics, aka an article in my own kind of like weird parlance, right? Once we do that, maybe 1 + n other articles, then we can move forward and potentially over time build a code of ethics, which means something for the Mani or any other group, right? So we can do this, then that allows us to do everything else because we're kind of like flexing our muscles, right? We're seeing what we can all accomplish. Amazing. Although I will never be able to bench 305 like Am. Just want to say that.
Shout out to Paulsonius and Steve Oshie. Hope you guys are doing
shout
well.
out to Tyson. Shout out to NFT Noob. Shout out to you, Whiplash. Shout out to, I don't know. There's so many fucking people in here. Mr. C, Gambling Whale, you both have weighed in on this in the Discord. And then
Dr. XO as well. Dr. XO is giving out $5,000 worth of ETH, guys. Give him a follow. Give him a follow.
That's a lot. Damn.
Yes,
that's
sir.
Amazing. And then also Unicorn.io. I don't think they're in here right now. If they ever happen to listen to this, shout out to Unicorn.io. Honestly, you've given a lot of great, really tangible, actionable input in the Discord. That's essential. It's what we're looking for. So thanks to you. Now other people know they can do that. That's exactly what we're looking for. Any final thoughts from anybody else? I'll be putting up next Saturday's space, by the way, right after this. So these are going to be weekly.
Yeah, man. Shout out to you, brother, for bring up all these discussion on how we can improve. So good on you, man. Good on you. You're a legend. And there's plenty of legend in the community anyway, but you're definitely one of them. And too many people in the community, man, over here at the moment, and ones that's not here. So big shout out to the whole community. Big ups.
Here. Shout out to the whole community.
Thanks, everyone. This was a great space, and definitely shout out to everyone. And I do want to say that the whole community is not this serious because in about 20 minutes, you're about to see a bunch of drunks get on a cult space. And if you want to, chill and relax, join the booze cruise or whatever they call it nowadays, booze and bands.
Alpha's drinking.
He's drinking. He's ready to go. So 20 minutes from now.
Wait, is that actually something that happens?
Yes, correct. Sorry, guys. I'm getting my flu shot now, so I had to head down.
Okay. Nice following that.
I want to see Knobhead. He knows who I'm talking about. Knobhead. Bellend, a.k.a. Bellend, a.k.a. VEMP, a.k.a. Bellend. So,
you don't have to dox the socials or anything, man.
Yeah. I'm sure he knows who he is. I'm
sure too. Well said. I think even I have an idea as to who this is. Sounds like a real OG to me, though.
Yeah.
In all seriousness,
that fucking dude never stops chilling. V. So yeah.
Hey, Replace. I admire your laugh, man. I like it.
Love you too, bro. Love you too, Taraki. I love your threads every day, bro. Keep it up.
Yeah, man. I gotta go and do some research and I'm a bit behind the 8 ball there, but I'll do it for you every day, brother. I thank you for
check out Gibran
Khalil
Gibran. He has amazing sayings, bro.
Who?
Gibran Khalil Gibran.
DM me the name. I'll go look it up, and I'll be up and ready in about 20 minutes.
Let's go. Thread girl Habibti knows. She's Lebanese, she.
Yeah, DM me, and then we'll make it happen. We'll send it to the people.
Let's go, bro.
Let's send it. All right, y'all. Yeah.
Thank you, Wastelander, man. I gotta go and say hello to the wild guy on the other side with the drinks.
It's another side of the ecology. It's still part of the ecosystem of an ecology of spaces and kinds of things that we have going on. Thanks so much, y'all. I'll see you there myself. Take care, everybody. This is recorded, by the way. Thanks for what everybody does. You're all amazing. On that note, we can finally leave. I'm a cat person myself. Take care, y'all.